Okay, so here I am ready for another project, and this is going to be for a queen size platform bed. We bought an Airbnb, and in outfitting it, I realized that although I had a lot of spare stuff, I did not have any queen size bed. And so I wanted to build a platform bed so that I could put one of these foam gel roll up and let expand once you get it mattresses. My wife and I have been sleeping on one for the past 3-4 months, and we like it. And so we think that that's going to be a good thing for the Airbnb. In Airbnb furniture, you want durable, you want attractive, and you want cost effective. And so this is going to be durable. I got a 2x12 here. I got 2x6s and some 2x4s and some OSB, and I'm going to make it. Not sure. I think it's going to be exquisite. I think it's going to look really good. My plans are to do a whitewash when I'm all done because that's going to match the color scheme in that room. So I'm planning on getting it all cut out, do a simple assembly with not all the screws, and then tear it down and take it down to Florida in a few weeks when we go down to set up the Airbnb near Kissimmee. So I'll take you along through this aspect. All right, so I think it's gonna look really well. I can add a headboard later if I want to. I just haven't decided what I really want to do with that. But I have time. So today's project is the bed, and so let's get started. This morning I did a cut sheet for parts that I need, and so I will get to working on that. So the first thing that I did was for the sides and the foot of the bed, and since a queen mattress is 80 by 60, I cut the foot of the bed 63, and I cut the sides of the bed 81 inches. After that, I cut my angles for my top reveal board for these two sides and for the foot of the bed. This will get mounted on the top of the 2x12 with a 1-inch lip overhanging on the sides. After cutting the reveal board for the top, I got some rough cut 2x6s I had laying around, and I cut them to length so that I could make a 4-foot by 6-foot base for the bed. So we would have 5.5 inches up, and then the 2x12 would go up another 11.5 inches. So the top of the bed's going to be about 17 inches tall. In order to keep the 2x12s up, I needed to cut some 62-inch long 2x4s that I was going to use to go from the side to side. Each side would overhang about 8 inches, and I would pocket screw them into the 2x12s to keep the 2x12 up 5.5 inches. Finally, I cut a 2x4 that was the same length as my 2x12s that I would screw into the 2x12s down about 2 inches so that a 2x4 and OSB could fit on top of that. Then off to the shop we go. So that's the lumber that we need here for our queen size platform bed. Got it here now into our wood shop, and I'll begin to do things. The one thing is my 2x6s, what I had laying around was some rough cut. Now they've been here for a little while, so they're dried out some. So I'm going to run them through the planer just to clean that one side up that's going to be showing, and then I'll go from there. You're not going to see this because I edited it out, but after planing a few boards, I'm not sure if it was the moisture in the board or not, but I began to have a few issues with feeding through, so I ended up taking the top off, and I ended up using the springs to kind of increase the pressure as it goes through, and so just a little maintenance I had to do, which I didn't include into this. But I got all four of the 2x6s planed down and smoothed down on the one side so that it would look just right. Back to the boring part, and that is sanding. So again, this was old lumber and most of it had been used for other purposes, so sanding was a pretty critical issue on this. So I used a belt sander with a fairly fine to really touch it up. It's about 150 grit that I used on this to clean it up. Again, my wood was imperfect, and you see that one knot. So decided to try to fill that with wood glue and then mix the wood glue with sawdust. And if you do that, then theoretically what's going to happen is that wood in the mixture with the glue is going to stain or look much better than if you just use putty. So that's what I did here on a couple spots. So you can see I put the glue in, I would scrape some sawdust up into it, and then I would rub that around, and I was actually quite pleased with how that worked out. So I tried a few other imperfect spots. Again, I wasn't trying to make it totally perfect, I was trying to improve it so that somebody didn't walk in and say, "What piece of junk did you use with this?" So a little glue, smear it around with sawdust so that it mixed up, and it ended up looking pretty good, I thought. And even it's a little bit lower than the knot, but it should hold really well, and by putting the sawdust on, it should finish pretty nicely. We'll see how this works. There's a big crack in there, wood glue with a little sawdust. I had to rip in half the 81-inch long 2x4 that's going to be the support for the platform, and so I ripped that down into half, and that's going to get glued and screwed to the 2x12s down about 2 inches. And the boring part, more sanding. and more sanding, and more sanding. Aren't you glad I increased this speed to 8x? Because that's not a very exciting part of this build. So I won't take you through too much. These 2x12s got concrete on them. So I found them in my storage area, and the last time I poured concrete was about 15 years ago. So I know they've been out there a while. It takes a little bit more time, but I think it's worth it. You don't have to buy this. And with painting, it's not like staining, but whenever you use stuff on hand, this is going to take you a little bit longer time, figure a little bit extra. I had those rough cut 2x6s, and it took a little bit more time because I had to run them through the planer. But that's the way it works, and I think nobody's going to know the difference once we get them painted. Okay, get to the fun part. Here I am gluing and screwing the ripped 2x4. First I'm marking, make sure that it's going to be exactly right, and I don't know where my tape measure was, so I just marked it, cleaned it off, put a little glue on there, and I screwed it together, and I did that both sides, and the 2x4 will rest on top of that 2x2 as I assemble that. So, do both sides the same way, and it's a pretty simple process. Again, down 2 inches or a 2x4, and your thickness of your plywood, or here the OSB that I had. This is a fun part. I love using this pocket jig. So these boards are going to go from side to side on top of the 2x6 base, and then we're going to pocket screw them, do the pocket holes and screw them so that they can hold up the 2x12s. So we're going to do these on each side, and you can see here where we lay them down, and we pocket screw the 2x12 into those ends. Then on top of those we have some without pocket screws that will actually hold the OSB up. So this is the simple frame. I'm just have a couple screws holding this together, because after this is the whitewash. I did cut a couple 18-inch supports to hold the boards that are going to hold the OSB, because I didn't want them to sag at all. So towards the top I put 2. I might put a couple more in when I final assemble it, but then I put the OSB on top. And I had, again, this is some scraps that I had tore out of old storage unit building. They were 8 foot long, so I cut them to length, and I cut them, put one down here, and it wasn't in the half, so I ended up ripping that down with another one in half. So you can see here how the top reveal board is going to be, and the mattress will go right inside that 2x4 on those sides. We have a little bit of a problem, and in building this bed, somehow this got 4 inches too long, because a mattress is 80 by 60. And so I'm putting a board on this edge and overhanging this 1/2 inch. However, this should be 60 in between here. which I have, by 80. Well, that was 84, so somehow I miscalculated. So when I tear it apart to paint it, I'm going to just cut 4 inches off of that, and we should be good. So it's good to fit it and then go from there. So I'm getting my OSB, and I haven't decided yet if I'll do any headboard up here. I'm actually leaving this just a little bit long here, but we're going to have a 10-inch mattress on top of that, which is going to make the height of the bed about 28 inches, which should be good. So I undercut this so you could actually stand at the bed here, you know, and your feet would go underneath it. And also it just raises it up off of the ground a little bit. So I got to finish cutting another scrap OSB I got here. That'll be done. I'm going to drill some holes in that, then tear it apart for painting. So I'm doing an experiment now, and I've dumped half water and half paint in here, and I'm going to try a wash. So I'm going to start with these, which are down under and going to be the least noticeable, I would think. Stirring it up a little bit here, and then we'll see how it goes. I'm pretty happy with how that's coming so far. So here, still the wood grain effect, and thus far, I'm liking it. Okay, I'm happy enough to go to a little bit more serious aspect, and that would be these. First, let's do this. Okay, you gotta know that I'm not the best painter, and I have never whitewashed before. I mixed half white and half water as kind of an experiment, and thus far it seemed to be working out okay. Again, it was really watery. I used a foam roller, and that seemed to be a pretty good thing to use. Look at all that I slopped on the floor, so hopefully it didn't make too bad of a permanent mess, but everything that I did, again, it seemed to work pretty well with that foam roller. I was glad that I had used that. Okay, that's going to wrap up this. I'm not going to assemble this until we get it to Florida, but please, it would really help if you hit the like and also the subscribe button to this YouTube channel. And then you can get to see when we actually assemble it and how that goes and how that looks. Thank you. God bless.